All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is Rosh, and you're watching FM9 Basics, a video series I'm putting together to help users program and control their Fractal Audio Systems FM9. So this video series can, of course, be used in conjunction with my previous video series, FM3 Basics and AxFX Basics. You can check the rest of those videos out on the rest of this YouTube channel, as well as fm3basics.com, as well as fm9basics.com, and axfxbasics.com. So a little about myself. My name is Rosh, and I am a guitar player and guitar tech out here in the Los Angeles area. I build and program a lot of guitar rigs for a lot of different clients. Some of my clients include Steve Vai, Leppard, Melissa Etheridge, Perfect Circle, Bush, and more. I wanted to give back to the Fractal community and show some strategies, tips, and tricks on how to program all the Fractal Audio Systems units, and this video series is focusing on the FM9. So in previous videos, I have been showing, using effects in parallel. So I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive into that and kind of go through my reasoning of why I tend to do a lot of parallel routing for time-based effects. So I do have a video talking about parallel and series routing that, goes over a lot of the basics, but I wanted to, maybe do a deeper dive and just show some examples. But this video series can, of course, be used as something standalone for those who want to route things in parallel. I find that it's much more versatile, a lot easier to use. You don't have any level jumping issues or tone shaping issues if you run stuff in parallel. Now, keep in mind, I will preface that there is no tonal difference between running a time-based effect in series or parallel. There's no tonal difference. So you can dial a reverb to sound exactly the same whether it's in series or parallel. Doesn't matter. The reason why I use stuff in parallel, I'll go into in depth in this video, but mainly it's for two main reasons. One, the independence between each effect. So that means my reverbs don't affect my delays don't affect my reverbs, etc. And then the other thing is to have an easier time dealing with any type of leveling issues when I engage or bypass an effect. So let's build a basic preset. Most if you've been watching any of these other videos, you're going to see me always use like the deluxe reverb. It's a good clean sound. So let's go to the deluxe verb normal. I mean, it's just kind of a pretty middle of the road standard clean sound. And again, when people are pulling up a lot of the fenders, just because the knobs are set at 5 on the dial or noon, you may notice and wonder why it's like, kind of overdriven. And that is pretty analogous to a real deluxe reverb. If you put the deluxe reverb at halfway up, that's already pretty loud on the actual amp, and it's already going to start breaking up. Most people, when they are using a deluxe reverb, it's somewhere in this range for the volume that they're going to play at. All right, so let's use the matching cabinet. We'll do something like this, and then we'll bring that up to 80, and maybe dial the bass back, add some treble. Okay, cool, awesome, and we could probably bring up the volume on that just a hair. And so one thing that I do, here's a quick tip that you just saw me do. The real key to using any of the Fractal units is, of course, don't dial in stuff with your eyes, dial it in with your ears, okay? And so a lot of times you're looking at these knobs and going like, oh, this should sound a certain way based on where the knobs are set. I 100% disagree with that. All you have to do is just make sure that you turn the knob until it sounds good, really. So one strategy that I use is instead of turning the knob to a certain number, I click on the knob and then I use the up and down arrows on my keyboard to increment in each way. So you saw me just do that with the level where I clicked on the knob and then I'm using the up and down arrows. And what this forces you to do is, one, it's incremental, so you're not like turning the knob a real significant amount. And number two, I'm actually looking down at my guitar and I'm looking at the arrow on my keyboard, so I don't actually see where the knob is actually set on FM9 Edit. I mean, I can look up, of course, but I'm actually looking down at my guitar. I'm moving the knob up and down, as you can see with the level, and I'm just turning the knob until it sounds to where I want it. So like, for example, if I was trying to dial in, you know, a certain amount of gain on this, I would just start. Cool. Might need a little bit of brightness. Great. So again, I'm not really looking at the number. I just click on it and then I'm just using the arrow keys and going up and down. So that's a real quick tip. So let's get back to the subject at hand, of course, running things in parallel versus series. So if you take a reverb, for example, and if you watch the video that I made prior to this, where it's talking about, you know, leveling issues, a lot of people put their reverb in series like this. And so, of course, you can do a pretty standard setting right here that I use that helps with leveling issues and then using the input gain. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to run this in parallel. And I'm going to demonstrate one reason why I do this. So if I have the reverb in parallel, generally you want the mix at 100%, the input gain at 100%, and then you use the level right here to dial in how much of the reverb you want. So for example, that's a lot of reverb, so we're gonna just dial that back. Again, I'm using the arrow key. And then the other thing is, of course, you want the bypass mode to be set either mute in or mute out. I want a little bit of a reverb trail if I bypass this. Okay, so I'll put this at like 1.5 so you can hear the trail. Maybe I'll put this at like 4 seconds so you can hear the trail. Awesome. Okay, so here is a real world reason why you would run things in parallel. So if I put a delay block right here, now you'll notice a couple things. First off, let's just make sure that our settings are correct. We want the mix all the way up, and then we want mute in. And again, the mute in will allow delay trails if I, you know, bypass the delay as I'm playing. As you can hear, there's some echo repeats. And then, of course, the level would be how much of the delay you have mixed in with your dry signal. Now, if you're looking at this, you'll notice that these two time-based effects are independent of each other. That means every echo repeat doesn't have any reverb on it. So for example, if I bypass the reverb, it's a nice, pristine, clean delay sound. Okay, and of course, you know, how the delay trails off is dependent on the type. Obviously, analog delays, tape delays will have darker repeats. Stuff like the 2290 will have repeats that are out of phase, you know, etc. But I'll just demonstrate with the digital delay. Okay, so if we just kind of move this over a little bit now, if I run the delay and the reverb in series, for example, you'll notice this phenomenon, and it kind of makes sense. Each echo repeat is going to have some reverb on it because the echoes are running through the reverb. Oops. And let's make sure this is 50%, 3 dB, and then we'll make sure this is, I don't know, 50%, 0 dB. All right. So you can hear each echo repeat is also triggering the reverb. And I'll add a little bit of feedback so there's more repeats. Versus here's how the delay would sound without any reverb in it. Oh, whoops. I want to make sure this is mute effects in and make sure this is mute effects in as well. As you can see, no reverb on the repeats. If the reverb is engaged, reverb on the repeats. Now, that might be a sound that you're actually interested in having. You want your echo repeats to have a reverb on it. That's totally fine. That would be almost like putting an echo pedal on an amp, and then the amp is in a room that's being recorded. Of course, that is totally a sound. There are plenty of sounds out there that do that. I find that running them in parallel like this just allows me to custom tailor each sound that I want. So for example, I'm going to put these back in parallel. Let's connect these shunts again. Okay, and then make sure this is 0% mix, mute in, 100% mix. Sorry, that was 100% mix. pardon me. And then now what this allows you to do, of course, is if you bypass the effect, let's say we're just trying to dial in this reverb sound. Okay, so obviously to me, that's probably too much reverb. So let's just pull that back. Pull it back even more. Cool, and then let's pull back the time a bit. Great. Now, if I have the reverb on and then I have the delay on, you'll hear that the delay is still just that pristine digital delay. There's no reverberation on the repeats. So this allows you to just kind of custom tailor that sound. So for example, if we get rid of the reverb right now, bypass it, okay, we can go, okay, cool. Like, do we want the delay repeats that loud? I'd probably pull back the level a bit. What I'm listening for is that I don't want the echo repeat to be louder than the initial note. Great. So now I'll bring the reverb back in. So you can hear that the signal, this signal right here, has the reverb, but the echo repeat does not. Oops. So this, again, allows you to just custom tailor each effect. So now, for example, if you have even more reverbs and delays, so let's say this is going to be, you know, a delay that's just going to be kind of like a, you know, something that you would play like a guitar part with. So let's just disconnect that for a second. Right, something like that. You know, you have. Now, let's say you want a reverb, or I'm sorry, a delay that's going to be, you know, something that's more like you would use for, you know, solo sound or something. So let's say we have a dual delay. Where is it? There we go. And I'll put like, you know, pretty standard 537 or 500 milliseconds, 375. Bring the mix all the way up. Let's bypass this delay. This is kind of like, you know, a delay setting that I would use to add a little halo around the note. Probably bring that back a little bit more. And then I like to go in the EQ, and then, you know, you can pull down the high cut right here to make sure those repeats are just darker than the initial note. Great. So this, again, if we have both delays on, they're going to be independent of each other. I'll turn the reverb off. So this allows you to, you know, create really cool ambient sounds, let's say. So, you know, these are both kind of digital style delays. Maybe I make the analog one, you know, maybe something more like a Deluxe Mind Guy, which is like a Deluxe Memory Man. So you can hear that there is kind of this warble from the Deluxe Mind Guy right up the center. I'll bring that up just a hair. And then you have this little halo on left and right that's more, you know, pristine delay thing. So you get this really cool kind of mix of two different delays. And again, I like to think of it as a halo around the note. Guys like Andy Timmons, who's one of my favorite guitar players, he does this kind of thing a lot. He was used two Memory Mans for a lot of his sounds and set at different times to kind of give a lot of depth to his sound, especially since he was playing trio a lot. So kind of a trick I stole from him. So now if we add a little bit of the reverb back. So again, running stuff in parallel, you get to custom tailor each effect. That's why I find it so useful Again, make sure we do mute in right there. But this allows you to have all kinds of different effects that aren't going to affect each other. And anything that's time-based, I generally run in parallel like this. So for example, if we use a pitch block. So this is another way that you'll see me do very often to get a chorusing sound. I like to use this dual detune. Some choruses, it's based off of like, a delay, a really short delay. Other choruses are based off of taking the pitch and then detuning it. So this is kind of more the 80s style, tri-chorus thing, where it takes your input signal, detunes it by 9 cents, and then raises it by 9 cents. And then we're going to set the mix to 100%. And then now, since we're basically tripling our sound, I generally just cut this back to about -6. So we don't have any volume jump. So again, like Mike Landau is like one of my favorite players. So he, back in the day, he would do, a lot of this tri-chorus kind of stuff. And of course, if we increase the modulation and the depth right here, we can get a little bit more warble in that sound. And again, right, you can, mess around with this depending on how loud you need it. I usually do it in 3 dB increments. So depends on how much the chorusing you need. Again, this is, running in parallel. The level is how much of it's almost like functioning like a mix, like how much of that chorusing sound you want. Not very much. Crank it up. Now a lot of chorusing. And then again, if we engage any of these other parallel effects, the delays will not be chorused. Each of these delays will not have a chorusing effect, and then you will not also get any reverberation on the chorusing. Again, each effect is independent of each other. And then not only that, you still have the dry signal going through. So that's kind of like your pure, pristine amp tone, whatever it's going to be. So again, this is a really effective way to make sure that your effects are not, affecting each other. They're independent. The other thing is, of course, depending on how many effects you have in your preset, this can also save some room so that you have all your time-based effects just like in one column, as opposed to in series where you're making, you're going to have to either use send and return blocks to squeeze all your effects in. This allows you to basically save a lot of room. And again, you notice that we're going to make that mute in, and you're going to notice that when you do this, again with the proper bypass mode settings, you're not going to run into any level jumps. So here's the main sound. Okay, so again, the pitch block with this kind of setting, I tend to pull the level back just a little bit. It just kind of depends, but a lot easier than doing any of the stuff. And then again, you also get to hear what each effect is adding to your tone. So that's going to be a quick tip for this video. Again, just running things in parallel. There is nothing wrong, let me preface again one more time, there's nothing wrong with running things in series. If you want to stack sounds, like you need your 2 delays to have some reverb on it or whatever, that is a sound. That is a very common sound that has been used on many records, used live by, all the world's, best guitar players. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, this is more of an approach that I tend to use a lot just because I like the independence of having each effect not be affected by each other. But the combination of a chorus with a delay and a reverb running in series might be the sound that you're going for. So the cool thing is with any of the Fractal products, it's as simple as just moving the blocks around and then changing the bypass mode and tweaking. So you can always have, 2 different types of sounds. So Outside of that, I hope everybody's having a wonderful day, night, morning, wherever you are, whenever you are. And if you guys need any one-on-one help, by all means, feel free to reach out to me directly or leave a comment below. If there's any other topics you'd like me to cover, by all means, feel free to reach me out to me or leave a comment below. I do a lot of one-on-one consulting, so hope to hear from you guys soon. Thanks.